they're returning to camps, actually, in the surrounds of their homes, and they will need aid and support for many, many, many years and probably decades to come.
Stephen Flynn.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. As we hope for this ceasefire deal and for the release of hostages, we continue to mourn all of those who've been killed since the vicious terrorist attack by Hamas on the 7th of October 2023. And in that respect, my mind's very much with the 6 little babies who didn't see this proposal because they froze to death in Gaza just a few short weeks ago. And that collective punishment of the Palestinian people will not be forgotten by history, just as all of those who sat silent, who encouraged and who armed extremists in the Israeli government will be judged by history too. But this ceasefire deal is not yet certain. It's been widely reported this morning that the Israeli cabinet has not yet signed it off. So can the Secretary of State please elaborate? What would the consequences be for any reneging on this deal, either by Hamas or indeed by the Israeli government?
Well, can I say to the honourable gentleman that this party has always stressed the seriousness, of course, of the security and Israel's security in this most toughest of neighbourhood, with Iran and its proxies up to so much malign intent. But we have always insisted that it must be within international humanitarian law, and we have raised our concerns at every turn when we felt that that was being breached. And can I also say to him that it is my sincere hope, as the Israeli cabinet meet to approve this deal, that in this most serious of moments, that they hear what President-elect Trump has said about his expectations on this deal, that they hear a united House of Commons at this moment and our expectations on this deal, and that they do the right thing.
Andy Slaughter.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the Foreign Secretary rightly says we must use this agreement to establish a pathway to a two-state solution. Steps along that pathway were set out in the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice handed down last July, which would give the reassurance and security to allow for reconstruction in Gaza. When will the government publish its response to that opinion?
Well, I'm very grateful to my honourable friend and for all of his championing and his work over the last few months to centre the plight of people in Gaza particularly. And I know he has tremendous legal expertise in these matters. And I assure him that this issue is being studied in depth by the appropriate legal minds in government. And we hope to be able to say more when that process is complete.
Sir Oliver Dowden.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Every Friday since October the 7th, many people have gathered in Boreham Wood, in the heart of my constituency, with a simple message: bring them home. Yeah. And can I urge the Foreign Secretary to use all the diplomatic efforts of His Majesty's government to bring that vision to bear? The first thing, of course, being to secure agreement from the Israeli cabinet. And then, as he says, at each stage along the process, this can go wrong. Can we keep a focus on the delivery of bringing them home? And if, as we all hope and pray, we have an enduring ceasefire, can he update the House on the role that our friends and allies in the Gulf states can play in the rebuilding of Gaza? Because this will be crucial in ensuring that peace endures. Yeah.
Well, I'm very grateful to the honourable gentleman for bringing to bear his constituency and that family of constituencies that we have in North London, where that candle for those hostages has been lit every single Friday, and that includes in the Stamford Hill area of my own constituency, which he knows is one of the historic homes of the Jewish community, many of them having migrated to Boreham Wood and Hertfordshire over the years. He's right to mention the importance of the Gulf states in relation to this. They can do so much on the reconstruction and the rebuilding of Gaza. They can do so much, I think, to support a rehabilitated and reformed PA. They can do so much to support the monitoring and the security arrangements that might need to be put in place, that will need to be put in place, if Israel is to be assured that they can withdraw and that Hamas will not attack them again. And we should remember the rocket fire that Israel experienced over many, many years, including, of course, the attack on October the 7th. So there's a key role for them, but they will not take up that role unless there's renewed, continued negotiation beyond phase one, and that begins in 16-day time, and they will need a political horizon too.
Yasmin Qureshi.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I welcome the ceasefire. 15 months of relentless bombing of hospitals, schools, refugee camps, women and children. For the ceasefire to last, it's really important that Israel has to be compelled to recognise that Palestinians have right to freedom, justice and self-determination. So can I ask the Foreign Secretary what steps are being taken to thicken the thin layer of ice on which this ceasefire agreement is skating on, and to tell us what steps have been taken for negotiations for a two-state solution, which is at the heart and root cause of this problem, and to ensure that East Jerusalem is the capital of Palestine?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm conscious how many people are on their feet. I will attempt to go a little bit quicker over this period. I say to my honourable friend, the Palestinian cause is a just cause. Two-state solution is where we've got to be. A political process is necessary. I will play my full part, and I reassured President Abbas that we will do that over the coming days and weeks.
Liz Saville-Roberts.
Very on. And as we, of course, live in hope of a ceasefire and the release of the hostages, we cannot, however, forget everything that has come before. The mass atrocities on October the 7th were followed by 15 months of destruction waged against Gaza civilians by the Israeli government. He mentioned how we eradicate extremism. Extremism is also eradicated by justice. Only justice in itself seeks redress to crimes. What steps is he taking, therefore, to support the ICJ and the ICC to hold all perpetrators of war crimes to account? And will he publish the full record of the UK's political and military involvement in the conflict so far?
Well, we have always been clear at the importance of international humanitarian law. And we have always been clear on the importance of our international courts to determine this. And let me be crystal clear. Many men and women died in this country in the Second World War to achieve the settlement that gave us international humanitarian law and the architecture that we all rely on. And it's for that reason that this party will never renege on our responsibilities in relation to international humanitarian law.
Tahir Ali.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Foreign Secretary rightly mentions the Houthis and their attacks. Now, we cannot forget peace in the region will only come about if Yemen also receives the same privilege as the Palestinians, whereby there's got to be a peace solution for Yemenis. Now, two-state solution is what was mentioned as well. I, along with my constituents, believe that these are only warm words. I do not believe this government will recognise Palestine as a state in this Parliament. Can the Secretary of State prove me wrong?
Well, can I say to the gentleman on Yemen that the Minister for the Middle East is travelling to New York to meet with the Yemeni Foreign Minister to discuss these issues at this time, and he's absolutely right. The role of the Houthis and their horrendous behaviour, sabotaging international trade and killing people in the Red Sea, is entirely unacceptable. And this will be very interesting. We've got this ceasefire. Will they hold to the ceasefire in relation to the Red Sea? We will act where we need to deal with the problems that we're seeing in the Red Sea. And I would say to the Honourable Gentleman, this is a moment to have hope for those two states, and to keep that alive. And with a new incoming Trump administration and their previous commitment to the Abraham Accords, I would ask him to be hopeful in relation to achieving that full recognition and those two states.
Bob Blackman.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I welcome the Foreign Secretary's tone, content and above all else cautious statements that he's made. Clearly there are concerns that as a part of this deal that Hamas are trying to resile from the commitments they've made. In fact, the Hamas leader overnight praised the events of October the 7th, vowed to keep repeating them until Israel is eliminated, and called upon all his followers to continue the fight. Equally, what the Foreign Secretary hasn't mentioned is that part of this deal, as I understand it, is the release of convicted Palestinian prisoners who are convicted of terrorist offences. So the risk is that those will return and cause more problems. So what can he do to make sure that indeed Hamas are eliminated from government in Gaza so that the Palestinian Authority can take control and make sure that actually peace is restored to the region? And we look forward to the release of the hostages and indeed cessation of hostilities.
Well, the Honourable Gentleman is right that over this period we could see up to 1,500 prisoners released, and it will be weighing very hard on the hearts of many Israelis that amongst those prisoners will be people who have committed murder. And it will be heavy on their hearts that they're returning to Gaza. And our view is you need a political process if you are to undermine seasoned terrorists who by necessity are swapped to get these hostages out. This is a delicate process. There's a process within Israel where some of those families affected can object. But he's right to recognise the balance that is struck in order to achieve the hostage deal and the necessary ceasefire over the coming days.
Melanie Ward.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As a former aid worker, in April last year, I was in Gaza and witnessed the enormity of the horror and destruction for Palestinians there. The scale of the human trauma of the last 15 months is a gaping wound on the conscience of the world. Israeli babies held hostage, some 20,000 Palestinian children killed. The Foreign Secretary has made clear he agrees it is desperately important that this ceasefire agreement holds, goes ahead, and that the deal is implemented in full, including the reconstruction of Gaza, and he is absolutely right. Does the Foreign Secretary agree with me that the Palestinians of Gaza, including my friends and former colleagues, Mahmoud, Mohammed, Mo, Fikr, Wasim, and so many others displaced within and outside Gaza, must have free movement to return to their homes or what is left of them, and that this must include the reopening of the Rafah crossing?
Well, can I pay tribute to my honourable friend, who I know has lost friends and colleagues over the course of these past 15 months. And can I pay tribute to her work before coming into this place and her work now. The Rafah crossing must open. It's part of this deal that the Rafah crossing with Egypt will open and that the 2.3 million displaced civilians will be allowed to return home. on foot via a coastal